First of all, to me, the practices in the community that invest in clinical trials really do understand that access to cutting-edge trials is a hallmark of excellence in cancer care. And it really does take motivation from the practice, because to run a clinical trial through your practice does require a significant deviation from your usual clinical workflow. Some of the barriers that are increasingly happening in the community are the complexity of the trials. So it used to be that we had a straightforward traditional clinical trial on breast cancer patients, and now we're dividing breast cancer into further and further more personalized little cohorts. So it may be an ER positive, HER2 negative breast cancer in the metastatic setting. And so that does a couple of things. One, it increases the complexity for your research staff. And two, it makes the number of patients that are relevant to the trial smaller. So I think the increasing complexity of trials, the increasing personalization of the trials, it's a huge opportunity, and it introduces new efficiencies in terms of answering questions. But it's also a challenge, especially in the community, for community practice where they're dealing with every different kind of cancer. In addition, the same old challenge we've had for years and years is that running a trial is simply a big disruption from your core workflow, which is the clinical care of patients. So for a physician to transform what they're doing for a specific patient from standard of care to a research protocol has been a very burdensome and time-consuming step, and that's always going to be a headwind against which the practice is flying when they're trying to participate in research. So I think there's a huge opportunity for technology and smarter trial design to make the trials less disruptive to the clinical workflow. And with that, I think we'll see more accrual of patients. So as we know, most of the oncology care in the United States happens out in the community, away from the large tertiary centers. And you just have to have that population represented in your trials. So we need trials that really represent the real world and that have more pragmatic designs. What I mean by that is they have somewhat looser inclusion-exclusion criteria. They allow the doctor to practice a little bit more the way they would in the real world with a patient that wasn't on trial. Because the traditional clinical trials do a great job of answering the question of how do these medications work in the very restricted population that they're done in, but we need to know what happens when they're released to the wild, so to speak. So it's really important that community practices be supported in conducting clinical research for oncology.